In doing some research for this conversation with Lindsay here, art therapy was something that I found absolutely fascinating. And I know she is so passionate about it. And Lindsay, I'm just so glad to have you here. For those that aren't familiar with her work, Lindsay Brooks is here with us. She's a licensed medical health professionalist. McNulty Counseling and Wellness is who you work with. You're a board certified art therapist, which again, I didn't even know existed prior to our pre-conversation. So I'm excited to get into it with you. You've taught classes in art therapy at the University of Tampa as well. You've worked with the Children's Cancer Center in Tampa. There's so much that you have been a part of, as well as being a member of the American Art Therapy Association. I think I got the resume all filled out there pretty well. What would you say?
Yeah, pretty good.
You are so well versed. You're so well versed in art therapy. And, you know, I was reading more information about it. And according to a 2016 study in the Journal of American Art Therapy Association, less than an hour of creative activity can actually reduce your stress, have a positive effect on your mental health, regardless if you're artistic or not. So I just want to get into just the basics here to start off. What is art therapy? Because when I think of therapy, I think of sitting down with a therapist. I think of kind of talking or expressing yourself and having that one-on-one communication. But art therapy seems very different from that.
Yes. So art therapy does include a therapist. There is some talking that can be involved, but art therapy promotes mental wellness, emotional wellness through the use of art materials and the creative process. And the creative process part there is really important because you don't have to be an artist per se or come in with any certain amount of experience or prereqs. Anybody can be supported through art therapy, whether or not they've ever picked up a paintbrush in their life ever before. An art therapist, a credentialed art therapist, has to be present in that environment for it to actually be art therapy. I think there's been a recent fad lately, which I love, the adult coloring books. Certainly beneficial and can be a really grounding experience, but technically not art therapy proper. That has to be done with a professional in a safe environment, with confidentiality, and all those other tenets of traditional therapy are present as well.
Now, when I think of, again, art therapy, I think of, you mentioned coloring books or drawing or painting.
Yeah.
Just take me through, I guess, what are the different techniques associated with it? Because again, you mentioned it, like, I think of, well, do I have to be an artist to actually participate in art therapy? Right. But no, you don't. Like, just using some of those creative outlets can help you.
I have this, recognize this famous painting,
the Mona Lisa.
I have this always on display in my office as kind of a silly reminder to all of my clients that you do not have to be capable of producing a masterpiece that hangs in the Louvre in Paris in order to benefit from art therapy. Because it's more, or often it can be more about the process and the finished product. So, experiencing what it felt like to be reflecting on a particular topic through the use of paint or the use of clay. It just provides a different vessel through which to examine feelings or thoughts. We've been preconditioned, we've been raised since infancy to understand and to use verbal communication. And sometimes words just aren't enough, or they're not dynamic and complex enough to really, truly resonate with a client, or to allow them to express themselves, or to make sense of something that they don't maybe understand yet, at least through a verbal capacity. And so art therapy can offer that, and it can offer this third-party tangible experience in the room. Where it's not just you and I, Ryan, looking at each other in the eyes and talking about our feelings. We can divert our eyes to this third presence in the room, this tangible paper or canvas or sculpture, and we can talk about that art piece and what it means or what it doesn't mean. And there can be some safety, I think, in having that reflective distance.
And then if you can paint the Mona Lisa, I mean, that's just an added bonus, right? On top of all of it. Lindsay, and I was reading that art therapy really didn't become like this formal program until the 1940s, but it is crazy to think that it's kind of been around for that long. I mentioned different types of processes in art therapy, drawing, painting. You mentioned clay. Like what I guess are the most common different techniques or practices in art therapy that you and some of your clients do use?
So I guess that's more of a personal question for art therapists. But for me, I do tend to use a lot of 2D materials just because they're the easiest, so the most accessible. And if clients have a positive experience with the 2D material in my office, there's a greater chance that they might go explore that 2D material outside of the office. But I also see a lot of value, get a lot of value out of using 3D materials with my clients, clay or even found objects. Sometimes I'll even ask a client to bring something that they found, so long as it's not stolen, to the next session. And then whatever it is they bring, it probably had some sort of meaning to them at that moment. And then to create some sort of a 3D sculpture using it. I mean, the possibilities are literally endless and limitless because that's the nature of art. It's subjective. And really, that's the nature of thoughts and feelings, too. It's subjective, or the interpretation of our own experiences are subjective. So having a variety of materials and being able to explore and experiment with different materials can bring out the opportunity to look at something and talk about something through a new lens or a less familiar lens.
Take me through the process of a typical session then, because, you know, I can imagine it one way. And again, you said it's kind of subjective and it's based off that person, but, you know, while this person is taking part in the art therapy, are you two having a conversation? You know, what are you trying to work through with them? You know, how does that process actually work if I'm envisioning what a session for art therapy would look like?
Sure. So sometimes, yes, there could be talking happening all throughout the creative or the art making process. Sometimes there is just dead silence in this room, and there can be value to that as well, embracing the silence or not feeling the need to fill the silence, and allowing the client to just be truly present with themselves and their feelings and their thoughts as their hands are engaging with the manipulation of these materials. I do try to encourage processing after, at the end, there is a finished product to process, or to make sense of, or to assign meaning to. And sometimes, every now and again, the client won't want to do that, or they're not willing, or they're not ready. And I know that they're still going to leave this office knowing that they experienced for themselves what I might not have been able to experience vicariously through them. But maybe the next time around, they'll be more open to exploring or verbally processing. And really, no two sessions are ever alike. No two art pieces are ever alike. I could give 20 different clients the exact same art directions and have 20 totally different experiences for each of those sessions. But a lot of times, just having that tangibility, like I said before, that third presence in the room, not just the client and the therapist, but this art form, can just really hold so much value because it can also serve as a timeline or a reminder. Hey, Ryan, remember when you were here 3 weeks ago, we talked about XYZ? No, you don't remember? Well, here's the art that you made while we were talking about that. Does it ring a bell now? Yes. Or, hey, Ryan, look what you made today. Look at what you made 6 months ago. What do you notice? What changes? What are the differences here? How does this reflect your life changes? Does it? Does it not? There's just so much valuable abstract communication and conversation that can come through the art experience.
And I love, you've answered all my questions spectacularly so far, but I love, Lindsay, that there's this palpable results that you can see, right? Because sometimes when you're going through traditional therapy, which I've been open on every episode, I go to therapy twice a month, if not more, depending on what I'm going through at a certain time. But sometimes it can be hard to truly see those palpable results unless you're documenting it, which I do. I write down, notes from each session that I have with my therapist. But it seems cool to me because you can see it. You can physically see the progression with some of the clients you're working with. And I wanted to bring up too, because, people go to therapy for different types of things. I've struggled with, anxiety and depression, but some people may go for PTSD. Others may go for, a multitude of different issues that they may be dealing with, loss, substance abuse, things of that nature. So art therapy, what I guess, is there a specific type of, and I don't want to call it an issue, but is there a specific type of therapy that it works more for or less for, or what kind of therapies do you target, or what kind of issues do you target to work through with art therapy?
Yeah, so really, if you are a human with thoughts and emotions, art therapy is for you. But I think art therapy can be a great supplement even to traditional talk therapy. I have some clients who come in and they know they've got an agenda. They pull it up on their phone. This is what they want to talk about. No art needed. Cool. And then I have clients that come in and they just give me the art materials. It's that kind of day or it's that kind of week. And then there's everything in between. I've had clients who come in because maybe like you, they've already done talk therapy and maybe they have found success or they haven't, but they're wanting something new or something different. And certainly art therapy can provide that. I've had couples before who have tried couples counseling and didn't quite want to give up yet, but still had not found the success that they were looking for or hoping for. And again, art therapy, it offers a new language, a less familiar language, a more subjective language to allow two people to really communicate with each other.
And maybe not even language at all, right? In some sense.
Exactly. Yeah. I work with a lot of teens, kids, young adults, and sometimes they'll have a parent come in and, oh man, it's so fun to watch the dynamic totally shift when the usual tools of words aren't necessarily as available. And now I'm asking mom or dad to participate in sculpting your defensive walls, sculpting your walls of defense. And then they've got their kid there and they're also sculpting their walls of defense. And now we're going to talk about what these sculptures represent. We're not going to bring up specific fights or the World War III blow up at the kitchen table the previous day. We're going to talk about the art and what these walls mean. And again, it touches on that safety and the reflective distance and being able to talk about maybe the core, the root of something instead of the details that might be triggering.
I just find that the way, and especially the way you describe that, just building the walls and then talking about and talking through it. It is so palpable to me. It's so visual to me. And I love that aspect of it. And, in doing some more research just about you and first of all, thank you for what you're doing. I mean, I can tell how passionate you are. I can tell how much you're helping people. I can tell how you're using your artistic, ways to kind of mold and help those out there. But what I found most interesting is that you haven't just used this in your office, right? Where you're sitting, where you're comfortable. I mean, you have been, working with school grade, children. You've worked with, as you talked about, couples. You've worked with inmates, in prisons too. How is that experience like in just kind of taking art therapy and applying it in different realms, not just the traditional therapy space, that people may be accustomed to?
Yeah, so actually that was an incredibly rewarding experience just to be able to work with inmates. And funny story, I even was open to exploring it because I thought, well, I love kids so much, I could never work with kids. I could never be a veterinarian because I could never put an animal down. So I thought, let me go the opposite end of the spectrum. Let me work with some inmates. And I realized that if I can have compassion for inmates and still find success in the therapy there, then surely I can give this, child therapy thing a try. But when I was working in a prison, it was a level 5 maximum security state prison, all males. And gosh, what a hungry, thirsty, open, vulnerable, and needy population. I mean, they're understimulated, and they are ready. They are, in my experience at least, they were very willing to engage in the art because they weren't having to necessarily engage in the verbal part of it, because words are vulnerable in a prison setting. What you say will be held against you in that environment. So it's a very guarded environment, emotionally, psychologically. To be vulnerable is to show weakness, and that just is not how it works. So being able to use art therapy to allow the individual to explore themselves within a group setting was just incredibly powerful to watch, especially as over time, every now and again, one inmate might be willing to really dip their toes in this whole vulnerability pool and express themselves. And vulnerability is often contagious. If I'm willing to be open to you and show you my wounds, you're probably a little more likely to lower your walls of defense and hear me out and maybe even share something about yourself. So to be able to see the connections forming, to be able to see men with a troubled past take ownership of the things that they're creating with their own hands, and to express pride in it or to express satisfaction that what they created matches up with what they were thinking or feeling. It's just a really incredible process to watch.